that's the logo of National Park Ruhr-Tauern, and I will talk about the establishment of the wilderness area there, which I've mentioned. This is a look in one of the parts of the wilderness area. Of course, not. It's behind the huts. It's further away. It's the Krimmler Arendal. So the history. I've already mentioned that in 1913, this was exactly the area that this German conservation organization, one of the oldest in Germany, bought in 1913. And in 1921, it was there was the first officially protected area, 9,000 hectares. Then there was a big debate about the Krimmler waterfalls, one of the biggest waterfalls in Europe, and that was to be, the water was to be taken off for a hydropower plant. And there were in 1951, 120,000 signatures to preserve the Krimmler waterfalls. In 1967, they received the Europe diploma, and in 1971, you see how long it takes to get a national park takes shape. In 1971, there was the first political agreement between the governors of Carinthia, Salzburg, and Tyrol to establish a national park. The first national park law was 10 years later, Nationalpark Law Kärnten. 1984 followed Nationalpark Salzburg. 1992 National Park Law Tyrol. So there's three parts. This is the border between the provinces, and Ruhr-Tauern National Park. It's on the next slide. So there's agreement, in 1994 there's been an agreement by federal constitutional law. 97 was the Natura 2000 recognition, and for Salzburg, IUCN recognition in 2006. Okay, that was what I wanted to show you. This is the national park, and these are the provinces of the borders of the provinces. And so there's three parts of the park. And for external communication, it's one park, but even for IUCN, it's in reality three parks. So in Austria, we do not have, legally, we do not have 6 parks, but 8. But still, in Austria, like in Germany, nature conservation is an issue of the federal states, and so therefore this has had to be divided up. So this is the park, and what about its basic data? It is the largest protected area, and especially the largest national park in the Alps, with 186,000 hectares. The core zone taken together is 122,000 hectares, and the buffer zone is 64,000 hectares. The whole thing is located in a region of 480,000 hectares. There are 3 provinces, 5 districts, 35 municipalities, and there is almost 100,000 inhabitants, so not very much because it's a very mountainous region. This here, below on the right, you have the ownership structure. 63% of the land is owned by private persons, 16% is public, for example, Austrian Federal Forests, and 21% is owned by NGOs. If you break down the same thing for the Salzburg part only, the protected area is 80,000 hectares, 80,500 hectares. The core zone is almost 54,000 hectares, and the buffer zone is almost 70,000 hectares. And again, 2,200 square kilometers and so on. You see the ownership structure here is even more shifted towards the public land. The Austrian Federal Forests have important land, and the NGOs have an important share, and these are especially those parts that went into the wilderness area. The national park conceives its isolation. You have you have the normal landscape, then you have the national park buffer zone, you have the national park core zone, and within that's you can have the wilderness area. Around it is the national park region, which is not set down in the national park law. So only buffer zone, core zone, and in the future also wilderness are dealt with in the national park law. The national park region is something like a communication construct. What is the role of the national park region? The blue one, it's simply to maintain a diverse cultural landscape, to ensure economic development, sustainable rural development, and to encourage sustainable tourism. The buffer zone, these are these external zones, which I told you before, where the discussion was to abolish them, but they're extremely important. They maintain the traditional cultural landscape. They protect, again, and this is lacking here, they protect against strong development like ski resorts and hydropower. And of course, they are serving the purpose of preserving those parts of the biological diversity that need some form of management. Then we have the core zone, of course. Here, the core zone should ensure unrestricted action of geomorphological, ecological, and evolutionary processes without human interference. And now we come to the wilderness zone, and that's interesting because the National Park Hohe is one of the few instances, it's high in the mountains, where you really have primary wilderness in Austria, because in the last years, in the last decade, all those huge glaciers are receding at a terrible speed, and the land that comes to light in these places has not been trodden by humans since 8,000 years. 8,000 years ago, it was not covered by ice as well. After the Ice Age, there was a very warm period, 7,000 years ago, 8,000 years ago. So the glaciers receded even further than today. But there were no humans there except a few hunters. And then the ice came back again. And nowadays, we have really primary areas that are increasing all over the area. So the National Park made it its job to protect especially those areas as wilderness areas. That's the shape of the wilderness area. I said it's 8,500 hectares. It covers the end of 3 large valleys. And it's mostly rock, ice, and alpine plant communities, of course. You have this huge glacier. This is the second largest glaciated area in Austria. And you have, of course, these receding glaciers. You see, here only you see it's completely fresh. The walls here is unvegetated. So this was covered by ice only a few years ago, and there's still some ice down in the valley covered by rocks. It's a close-up of this situation. Yeah, still more close-up. And as soon as the area gets free of ice, plants are beginning to colonize. So this is a unique opportunity to study primary succession processes in the mountains. It's the same that happened after the Ice Age. So let's look on the glacier. The glacier is receding, of course. And this is Untersuchsportal. This is part of this part which the conservation organization, the German conservation organization, has bought in 1928. And if you go further down, that's the glacier. Again, this was covered with ice only 20 years ago. This was covered with ice 30 years ago. That's, of course, the river is very dynamic. It produces a lot of gravel. This was covered with ice about 40 years ago. This was covered with ice about 60 years, I would say. Again, a little bit further down the valley, we're going down the valley. And here, where the street stands, this is on the border where the ice was around 1850. So you see, there's a tremendous succession we can expect with the receding ice and with the changing plant communities that probably forest will move into this area. So it will be very interesting. Nowadays, it's mostly rocks and ice and scree and alpine plant communities, but forest will, in the future, there will be forest. So what is the time schedule? In 2006, there was the IUCN recognition for for parts of the core zone of National Park Hohe Salzburg. And then the director started to attend wilderness meetings, meetings of palm parks, wilderness conferences all over the world, and he got very interested in the wilderness idea. And he attended, of course, the Prague conference in 2009. And in 2012, he decided to set up a wilderness area. He contacted WWF and palm parks, later on EWS. And we made our feasibility study in 2015 years ago. We made the field study of the EWS, the audit. And in 2016, this was the seminal year, they purchased the 3,000 hectares of this private German conservation organization. They purchased it for 5 million euros, 5.5 million euros. This was a huge project. As you have said, Mr. Eaton, that it is safe to have it well protected. So even if this is a conservation organization, the National Park bought it from that organization, 3,000 hectares, and got on with a long-term contract with the Federal Forest for another 6,000 hectares. approximately. So 8,500 hectares are now secured. Actually, and this is from 2017, the legal basis is laid. At the moment, there's the regulation for the wilderness area put out for public consultation, and that's the reason why Wolfgang is not there, because in the very last moment, everybody was agreeing on the area. Every politician was fine with it. We paid 5.5 million to buy the area and so on. So everything was settled, and now that the paper has been put out for consultation, a group of mineral collectors stood up and said, no, we don't want this area. And they started to mobilize hikers. And our colleague from the Alpine clubs, they were very much in favor for the area. Got a really shitstorm on the internet, on the telephone. What about you fencing us off? So, yeah, there's a huge movement at the moment, and it's getting crazier and crazier. At the moment, there's even the ballon drivers, the paragliders and the gliding plane clubs come and say, no, we want to fly here. It's absolutely absurd. You cannot fly at a location. There's no terminals there. But they fight it. So, and the problem at the moment is, and that's the reason why Wolfgang is not here, politicians start to give in. They have allowed that there should be free access to every part of the area. In practice, this is not a big problem because in this area you can only walk on paths. Only when you're a very specialized climber you can do something else. But still, yeah, they gave in on the access issue, and I hope that they won't give in on the plane issue and so on, because this does not fit with wilderness. So on the one hand, it's ironical, we have now an excellent paper on what a wilderness area in a national park should like, and at the moment Salzburg politicians are watering down step by step. Hopefully it will not happen, but yeah, we'll see to that also, so it's one of our high on our agenda. But if everything goes to plan, immediately, as soon as the wilderness area is declared, they will start a research and monitoring program, also a monitoring program focusing on wilderness quality, simply to monitor this across the time. And they will start wilderness school, wilderness camps, and wilderness exhibitions, not especially in the area, but around it also. So Wolfgang takes this very serious, and he is hopeful that he will receive, if everything goes to plan, by 2018, the ICN 1B recognition. The only thing is now we hope that politicians are not watering the very good regulations that they are now, are not watering them down. So that's just a few pictures during the visit. There was always people involved. This was the WWF EWS visit in 2012. Then a picture from the audit, and during the Wilderness Academy days, you see this was an excursion group. So it's really a huge and extremely impressive landscape. And what Wolfgang wanted me to stress is that for all these technical processes, in the start you have to always have a vision about wilderness area. Then you have to go through all the basics, discuss everything, set up protection, set up research, set up the outreach activities, and in the end, hopefully, a large group of people will appreciate you in this area. So that's it. Thank you very much.
So any questions? Wolfgang. Yeah.
In this case, are you planning, or colleagues from the Tavern, are planning some measures to alien species to combat some case if the alien species will be?
Fortunately, as we have heard,
special areas.
As we have heard already today, we are in a fortunate situation that there's very few invasive species in the mountain area. And so high up in the mountains at the moment there's not. Maybe in the future there may be some. But in the, I can only say in the regulation, it's not, there's no text about invasive species. But in our position paper, the situation is there. We say that you can try in a wilderness area if invasive species are coming, colonizing the area. You can try to fight them. But if this doesn't work, you have to stop it. And in general, in the wilderness area, there's no control of invasive species. And also we're in the lucky situation that in the mountain areas we do not have the problem. We have big problems with invasive species, for example in Donau National Park. And here, to give you an idea of this, Donau National Park, there's Ailanthus altissima, this tree, the tree of heaven, which is very impressive. And there's Box elder tree, which is Aza negumbo. And they are quickly spreading. They have been spreading during the last 40 years in the floodplain forest. So, and Donau National Park has tried to do the same thing we proposed in the paper. For 1 or 2 years, they had a project which was finished last year. They were really fighting every tree, every single Ailanthus tree, barking them, not cutting them down, but stripping the bark off. And with GPS, they marked each tree. So there were thousands and 10,000 of trees in the national park. The national park is 9,000 hectares in size. So they were marking them, and they were really trying to fight them for 3 years. And they succeeded to reduce them, but now in the end they decided they will stop because such a level of intervention cannot be kept up. It's impossible over the time. And also it was, it was this taking into account all this intervention was a lot of intervention and a lot of disturbance. So they said, okay, in the end we have to accept it. Especially in floodplain forests, you will have to deal with invasives. And if you do a wilderness area there, then it's full of invasives. But you must be sure.
Okay, Vlado,
I have just very short comment to this Wolfgang area, because I was personally very heavily involved, and EWS as well, because of international wilderness audit. What was said at the end? Vision. That's the key issue. If anybody of you would like to achieve what Wolfgang did, you need a vision. What we are offering, it's helping you develop this vision. And now, on that slide, we actually have seen that this audit process and certification of EWS was just one chapter, one step on Wolfgang's long-term vision. And I would like really appreciate that systematic approach, what he was done and he is still doing. Just keep this in mind, because otherwise, wilderness with a capital V will not very likely happen. There are so many challenges what we or management has to face in long.
okay.